Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening. Welcome to the show.
You learn in life can't help you when you're old. She's got the cushion for the pushing of the love so true. When she's talking to me, I know she's looking at you. She says there is no other, no need to question why. She's always on the phone to another guy. Go carefully. This is gonna hurt me bad. This is gonna hurt me. God's on the line and my life's on hold. Don't believe what people say, 'cause their lives are all the same. God's on the line and my life's on hold. When you think that something's up, better watch out for the train.
I'm going to cut off the music early tonight because it's going to be a difficult show for me to do mentally. We are talking about the lessons of Nagasaki and America's poor choices in war. Don and Wade are on hold, and I have two things to read first. I'm going to start out with 3 verses from Isaiah. Isaiah 2, 3, 4, and 5. Many people will come and say, "Come, let us go to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Come, descendants of Jacob, let us walk in the light of the Lord. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, I'm reading a segment by Gary Coles, who actually writes for the same paper as me. I used to write for the Duluth Reader. He brought up some really interesting points, and I may not read the whole thing, but it's the 73rd anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki, and there were some interesting points in this article that I found that I never knew. On August 9, 1945, the second of only 2 atomic bombs ever used as instruments of war was dropped on Nagasaki, Japan by an all-Christian bomb crew. The well-trained American soldiers were only doing their job, and they did it well. It had been only 3 days since the first bomb, a uranium bomb, decimated Hiroshima on August 6th. With chaos and confusion in Tokyo, where the fascist military government and emperor had been searching for a month for a way to honorably end the war which had exhausted the Japanese to virtually moribund status. The only obstacle to surrender had been the Truman administration's insistence on unconditional surrender, which meant that Emperor Hirohito, whom the Japanese regarded as a deity, would be removed from his figurehead position in Japan, an intolerable demand for Japanese. The Russian army was advancing across Manchuria with the stated aim of entering the war against Japan on August 8th. So there was an extra incentive to end the war quickly. The U.S. military command did not want to divide any spoils or share power after Japan sued for peace. The U.S. Bomber Command had spared Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Kokura from conventional bombing that had burned to the ground 60-plus other major Japanese cities during the first half of 1945. One of the reasons for targeting relatively undamaged cities was their new weapons of mass destruction was scientific, to see what would happen to intact buildings and their living inhabitants when atomic weapons were exploded overhead. Early in the morning of August 9, 1945, a B-29 Super Fortress called Boxcar took off from Tinian Island with the prayers and blessings of Lutheran and Catholic chaplains and headed for Kokura, the primary target. Its nickname was Fat Man, named after Winston Churchill. The only field test of nuclear weapon blasphemously named Trinity had occurred 3 weeks earlier on July 16th in New Mexico. The molten lava rock that resulted, still found at the site today, is called Trinitite. With instructions to drop the bomb only on visual sightings, Boxcar arrived at Kokura, which clouded over. So after circling 3 times looking for a break in the clouds and using a tremendous amount of fuel in the process, it headed for another target, Nagasaki. Nagasaki is famous in history for Japanese Christianity. Not only was it the site of the largest Christian church in the Orient, St. Mary's Cathedral, but it also had the largest concentration of baptized Christians in Japan. It was the city where the legendary Jesuit missionary Francis Xavier established a church in 1549, a Christian community which thrived and multiplied for generations. However, soon after Xavier's planting of Christianity in Japan, Portuguese and Spanish commercial interests began to be accurately perceived by the Japanese rulers as exploiters, and therefore religion of Christians and their new Japanese converts became the target of brutal persecution. Within 60 years of the start of Xavier's mission church, it was a capital crime to be a Christian. The Japanese Christians who refused to recant their beliefs suffered ostracism, torture, and even crucifixions similar to Roman persecutions in the first 3 centuries of Christianity. After the Reign of Terror was over, it appeared to all observers that Japanese Christianity had been stamped out. However, 250 years later, in the 1850s, after the gunboat diplomacy of Commodore Perry forced open an offshore island for American trade purposes, it was discovered that there were thousands of baptized Christians in Nagasaki living their faith in a catacomb existence completely unknown to the government, which immediately started another purge. But because of the international pressure, the persecutions were stopped and Nagasaki Christianity came from the underground. By 1917, with no help from the government, the Japanese Christian community built the massive St. Mary's Cathedral in the Urakami River district of Nagasaki. I'm almost done, guys. It turned out in the mystery of good and evil that St. Mary's Cathedral was one of the landmarks that Boxcar Bombard had been briefed on, and looking through his bomb sight over Nagasaki that day, he identified the cathedral and ordered the drop. That would be Truman, actually. At 11:02, Nagasaki Christianity was carbonized, then vaporized in a scorching radioactive fireball. And so the persecuted, vibrant, faithful, surviving center of Japanese Christianity became ground zero. And what the Japanese imperial government could not do in 200 years of persecution, American Christians did in 9 seconds. Very few Christians in Nagasaki survived. With that, I'm going to pull in John, Don, and Wade, but I'm pulling in Don first because he's been waiting the least. Hi, Don.
Hi, Jane. Hi,
Actually,
John.
you've been waiting the longest. I don't have Wade and John on there yet. Hold on. Wade and John, just a sec. Wade's on the line. John's on the line.
Hey.
So I'm sure. Hi, Wade. Thanks for coming back from your flight so fast. I'm sure John was not impressed with that article, which is actually written by an atheist. But the point of his article is that Christianity existed in Japan underground for several years, and now it was torched. Christianity was torched by Christian Americans who dropped the Fat Man uranium bomb all over Nagasaki. Not only did they do that, they annihilated 70,000 people, melted their faces and their bones. And I could barely stand to watch the YouTube documentary on the whole thing. Who would like to comment first? And Ben just called in too. But I'm going to hold off a second. Ben, I'll pull you in a minute. Go ahead, Wade.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem with bombs is you can't, bombs don't discriminate. They just kill whoever's in the path. So that's definitely an ugly thing before.
Since all 4 of you guys are Americans, and I'm going to pull Ben in 30 seconds, but I want to ask you all this poignant question, whether or not our country killed the strongest Christian community in Nagasaki. Were you taught as a child that dropping those 2 bombs was an absolute necessity to end the war? It was the only way out.
Yeah,
well, I wouldn't mind commenting.
Okay, John, you can since you're at work. And go ahead, John.
Okay.
Ben's on the line too.
First of all, just a news flash. Donald Trump has announced that they are going to. He's petitioned to change the colors of the American flag to orange, white, and blue. And also in color of his hair.
You have to start the whole damn show out with the Donald Trump joke.
What?
Yes.
Is that an Onion article?
Also, the Clinton team has been found guilty of illegally spying on the Trump team to see if the Trump team was illegally spying on them.
Okay, I'm muting you. I'm muting you for 5 seconds till you can get it together.
He's at work.
All right.
Hold on, he's at work.
I don't care about Donald fucking Trump tonight. Think of all the melted bodies in Japan. Think about that for one night. Okay, John, you got one more shot.
I actually have.
John, you got one more chance.
Oh, not a problem. If you think about it, the one group of people that was ready to have a bomb dropped on them was Christians. They're ready to go to heaven. If they dropped it on atheists, they'd be burning in hell forever. So I guess
that's a better joke.
Oh, it's not. No, it's not a joke. I'm very serious. Like, you could point a gun and pull it on me. I am ready to go. I've had people put guns in my face, and I'm ready. I actually don't blink. People who don't will scream out, "Oh my God, please don't kill me," and beg for their life. That's a true story. But now going back to this issue, we were told in school that was the best option. Or in other words, the Japanese leadership, it wasn't the Christians, but the leadership there, as you know, they had suicide, basically, they would, I forget the name of it, it's like Carrie. They would die. They would kill themselves as honorable. The government would have kept going and killed hundreds, even millions of people if they could have. The only way was to totally humiliate them and embarrass them to the point of surrender. And even then, we went over there and had their leaders not retiring in disgrace. We had to do it very gracefully so they would accept it. So, the question is, do you ask them in advance, we would like to drop a bomb on you in surprise so you can be ready for it, and choose the location? I guess that would be the question. It is war.
I'll let somebody else comment, but in case Ben and John missed it, August 8th was the date set for the Russians. They were going to invade Japan. So Japan would have had to fight a two-front war against America and Russia. Not on land with America, but by sea.
Well, as you know, there were Japanese soldiers that they found years later in the jungles that didn't know the war was over, and they were prepared to fight, for the rest of their life. So I think you kind of have to, at what point do you measure emotion and feelings when you're out to kill someone? That's what war is about, unfortunately. And it's a sad thing that they kill Christians.
Well, one of my professors wrote a book about strategic bombing and the proportionality of how large and wide, not just atomic bombs, but any kind of bombing. The purpose of the book was how much do you have to kill in order to achieve your goal?
Well, the answer to your question is we dropped one bomb and they still didn't quit, right? So we dropped a second bomb. So that tells you it worked the second time. Did
you know that it took 2 days they did not know the second bomb was dropped till 3 days later. They found out through a White House press release. For some reason, the news didn't travel fast that day.
Really? So Japan didn't know that we dropped a bomb on their city?
No, they didn't.
According to who?
According to the article I just read.
So they didn't have telephones or radios or any communication system in the middle of the war?
I'll have to look it up, dude. I'll have to look it up. But I'd rather have someone else comment while I'm looking up my next fact. It can be you.
Oh, yeah.
I just mean it's not going to be me.
Oh, no. I'm cool with that.
Okay, Ben, we haven't heard from you yet, or Don.
I'm going to keep myself on mute for a little while. I'll pop back in a minute.
You can just stay on mute. Do you want me to put you on mute?
No, I'll put myself on mute, and then I'll jump back in.
That's fine.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, so
I think
Don,
kamikaze was the word.
That's what I was trying to
Okay, thank you. I guess the reason I brought this up, I'm not looking back 73 years, but it kind of reminded me of...
Oh, yeah?
Well, first of all, I'm only 57, so I wasn't alive. But I found out something tonight, and I want to ask you guys a lateral question. Back in 1974, the Puerto Ricans had an underground movement called something like FLAN, and they set off 3 bombs in New York City, and they were going to attempt to overthrow America in Puerto Rico. No matter how fruitless that would have been, they were trying. They led reporters to certain phone booths where they had hidden information, and it took the FBI over 2 years to find out who these men were. But what I'm trying to say is the resistance against Imperial America, or it could be Imperial Britain, was pretty intense during that time. Over 1,900 little bombs went off in America between 1974 and like 1979, but there was little political coverage. So they were kind of like the original Al-Qaeda. My question to you guys is, and I know Don's going to side with me, but is it necessary in war? Now, back in World War II, it was a traditional war. But is it necessary to use this type of over-excessive bombing? And how could we have established better relations, not only with the Japanese, but the rest of the world? Because we went into Korea a few years later and lost another 50,000 men.
I heard something ridiculous that like political assassinations had become against the law, and to me, like, that's inhumane. Like, okay, you can't sniper the person that's causing the trouble, but it's okay to like drop bombs on villages nearby. So to me, that seems like not really a moral option. Like,
was this in America
or
in another country?
I heard in America that we weren't allowed to make political assassinations, which is like, no, that's, well, for many years, war has been, there's been this twisted principle in war of like, you're not supposed to harm the nobles, you're not supposed to harm the people that are pushing this war. You're just supposed to, you just get to harm the foot soldiers that are forced to carry it out.
Well, that's true to some extent, because we did a show on United Fruit Company where an American corporation completely dominated parts of Guatemala and the banana production. It was a $1 billion industry, and they were only paying Guatemalans 50 cents a day, but they hired this one guy from the American military and told him to create a false coup d'etat. So it looked like there was like a terrorist-type leader in Guatemala that we had to subdue. So it could be true what you read, but you probably don't remember where you read it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's in a lot of history. It's a broad thing throughout history. Like, you don't get to kill the princes and the kings. You kill their soldiers, and that's been throughout a lot of time periods. But I don't remember where I heard about assassinations. Sorry.
There's strategy to that, because you have to look at the will of the people and the resistance. But to answer your point too, Jane, if you were a soldier and you were on, let's say on Normandy Beach, and your partner got shot to death, I don't think you'd be sitting there concerned about Christians or atheists in any country. If they're on the other side, you have to kill them until they surrender. And anyone that's not for you is against you. Notice if the Christians, say in Japan, were disarming
the only reason I agree with what you said, but I brought the article up because it was just an interesting angle. Not a lot of Americans even knew there was a church in Japan in that particular location.
Right, you'd have to do the research and figure out the society, the culture. And in war, you don't do that because you don't even know. Because, for example, the nuns or the priests or the little kid running up to you could have a grenade, and it's a setup to kill you. It's 5 versus 5. So I think in that term, when you get into war, you really have to say your objective is to take out the other person as quickly and as fastly and as powerfully as possible, so that they will. Because that I don't know if you run into this. If you've ever had to kill something like an animal, the worst thing you can do is to try to do it 50%. You've got to just wipe them out, because any other way is cruel. They will suffer, they will resist, they will fight, and it'll be a very excruciating thing emotionally for them and for yourself. And I've experienced this. It's like, better just to take whatever and just blow their head off than to try and strangle or, drown them or do something like that. It's not going to work. So, but I do have to go back to
I wanted to bring up 2 more points in deference to that. The person who posted that article on their Facebook wall is a peace activist in Holland. So he's been a peace activist for 70 years. But I want to read one more paragraph and then comment on what you said, because this kind of goes along with what you said. Strategic bombing is a military...
But just remember to vote for Hillary in the next election.
Okay. I hear you rattling at the 99-cent store. If you use the H word or the D word, I'm going to actually mute you for 30 seconds for that last comment. Okay, I'm reading a 4-sentence paragraph on strategic bombing. Strategic bombing is a military strategy used in total war with the goal of defeating the enemy by destroying its morale or its economic ability to produce and transport material to the theaters of military operations or both. It is systematically organized and executed attack from the air which can utilize strategic bombers, long or medium-range missiles, or nuclear-armed fighter-bomber aircraft to attack targets deemed vital to the enemy's war-making capability. One of the aims of war is to demoralize the enemy so the peace of surrender becomes preferable to continuing the conflict. So that, I'm unmuting John. That kind of goes along with what he said, that you have to do anything necessary, because in the sense of Germany being a Christian nation too, they were brutal assholes under Hitler. So it really doesn't matter the religion, but in Europe we already knew what their status was religiously. Now I'd like to hear from either Wade or Don or Ben when he comes back.
Hello, y'all. I'm
Hi,
trying
Don.
to get a grasp. Hi there. I'm trying to get a grasp of what you're trying to get at about with the Irene. I can understand and appreciate the anniversary, even though it was when was the
August 9th, August 6th, 1945. And August 9th, 1945.
Right. They were back to back in a sense. But the Christianity aspect of it is interesting, knowing that was President
Truman.
Truman. Okay, Truman. He could care less about people. He was at war and he wanted to kill everybody he could, no matter where they were or what they were doing. So he was kind of a super hawk, and it doesn't surprise me that he knew about it, had to know about the Christian aspect or background or culture of Nagasaki, and I am not surprised that he would try to maliciously bomb Christianity. Truman was he was Donald Trump before Donald Trump. And at that time, warmongering was the game of the day by the rich 1%ers. And now Donald Trump is taking us into that sphere where the 1%ers are playing the game and we're just the pawns, the 99%ers. And that's the sad thing about this whole thing. I had true hopes that maybe there would be some good coming out of what we were doing under the Obama rescue. And it was just coming along. We were getting jobs, not necessarily at this rate. But right now, we're starting to lose them. But we're still not giving Japan and other Christian states the kind of support that we should give if we cared about Christianity.
Well, Japan's still not mostly Christian. But
yeah,
it's a good
like
country.
I said, only Wade and Don heard the part where I read that they tried to stamp it out several times.
Right. But that was over centuries. You said a few years in your commentary, and you also introduced the issue as a century-old situation where they were in the underbelly of the underground. So I didn't quite understand that timetable that you mentioned, but
what I was saying is that the Japanese got pissed when Spain came over there and tried to exploit their economic situation. They caught wind of that and said, okay, here's these Europeans. They're trying, like Francis Xavier was cool. He tried to promote the good side of Christianity, but then the Spanish come over and try to dominate it. So we do not want this. They kind of like paralleled religion and their culture to the same extent. And
right.
They just decided Christianity was bad at that time.
Right, which is what everybody thought, and that's why people started coming to America. You know, that's their own country, the Anglo-Catholic Church. They started branching off from Episcopalian and Methodist, and they wanted to have their own freedom, so they came here, and and we got their freedom. But now
Wade's kind of right. Japanese has never been steeped in Christianity. They've always kind of had their own. Shintoism was a big thing over there.
Exactly.
Buddhism.
What was that, Wade?
Well, yeah, mostly Shinto, Buddhism. There's a lot more Christianity in Korea. That's about like neck and neck between Buddhism and Christianity is the big religion there. But
South
Japan,
Korea
not so
is
much.
A huge Christian country. South Korea is huge. Mm-hmm.
Particularly a lot more so than a lot of the other Asian countries.
Yeah, the Southern Baptists nonstop were missionaries over there, and I know you mentioned on the show that we interviewed you on there was a couple other big denominations there. Yeah,
there's just quite a few. There's a pretty big Presbyterian church. There's a big Catholic church there. Generally, that people, like, especially back in the time of World War II, I think, there's been a lot of changes in culture. Well, definitely there's been, maybe because of TV and radio, we're just more aware of the world. But if you look at the mindset back then, I mean, they didn't say we got to fight the Nazis. They said we have to fight the Germans. There was a lot more of an us and them. So I think people didn't think about the humanity like we do now. They didn't think, okay, there's regular people living in Japan. There's regular people living in Germany. People didn't think so much about that at that time, I believe.
I agree.
But
I wouldn't say that I'm anywhere near an expert in. I did take 2 Eastern civilization classes, but I'm really not that familiar with the religious dynamics of China, Japan, and the only one I'm familiar with is South Korea.
Okay.
But since you live there in the flesh, we can in that part of the world we can use you as a reference.
Sure. Yeah, a lot more Christianity in Korea. There is Christianity in China. One myth is that, like, Christianity is outlawed in China. That's not really true. They outlaw more proselytizing, like witnessing, but they do let people. They let people worship their own. They're just more afraid of, like, the street evangelists and such, and they're concerned about cults. The government of China tries to be like a parent, and that's seen as a good thing by a lot of people, but I don't think it's a good thing. But That's kind of the mindset. Like, okay, we got to take care of the people, protect their minds.
They try to parent Korea and Japan.
Well, no, China more so.
Yeah, that's what I meant. China tries to parent Korea and Japan.
Well, more the Chinese government tries to parent their people, is what I mean.
Okay.
But there is more of that sense of, like, hierarchy. Like, I found in Korea, still there's more this idea of, like, okay, the elder knows best for the younger, not so much the free and equality kind of mindset we have here. So that is a cultural difference I've seen in a lot of places in Asia.
When the documentarian was interviewing there are actually still 50,000 survivors from the Nagasaki bomb dropping, and the documentarian went around, interviewing them. And when you come into the Japanese home, the visitor bows to them, but they bow back to you. Like, there's still a lot of respect in that type of culture. Mutually between everybody, but the elders are held in a higher position.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, I've noticed both in Korea, because there's like this kind of clashing mindset where you have the old idea of like honoring the elderly, but they've also have some of this like Hollywood kind of worship of the youth and glamorizing and putting the youth on a pedestal.
I was wondering that when I was watching scenes around Nagasaki as a new modern city, like how much of the youth are into the same type of like anime films and videos, and how many of them have kind of abandoned tradition. Like, are a lot of them just caught up with internet stuff like the rest of the world? Or are they still respecters of their own culture?
I think it's both. I don't think they pick one or the other. I think there's cases where they respect their elders, but they also like the new stuff, and it's a mix. It's complicated.
Did you go to Tokyo when you were over there?
I have.
Did you ever make it over
briefly.
to Tokyo? Oh, you have?
I did. Yeah.
That is a pretty cool city.
Yeah, definitely. But
you guys, we can stay on this topic, or we could segue into American wars, or what do y'all want to do right now? John, you're not on mute anymore. Pardon?
Well, I'm still wondering, what is the goal? What is your?
It's just a history lesson, okay?
That's because
I'm sorry,
of me.
I'm in a bratty mood tonight because I worked a 20-hour shift and I got up at 9 in the morning. Then I had to go to a 3-hour Toastmasters seminar. I'm trying to blow some steam off.
All right.
I did try to propose to you guys a couple of questions, but Don missed the boat, and I didn't want to explain again. But I can ask you guys this. Since, I do kind of guide the show in certain directions at times, not to steer away from what you guys want to talk about, but now that the world is made up of a unipolar political system where they claim that America is the only superpower, but that may not be true. How do you guys fashion the stability of the world? Like Japan, you don't hardly hear anything about them being a political threat. Now that we only have to worry about terrorists and terrorist elements and not always traditional wars, like, how do you think that factors into what our history is? Like going to traditional war in Korea, Vietnam, and World War II. Like, is the dynamics always going to be like just skittish splinter groups, like clumps of people who are against each other just doing border wars, or what do you think?
For a while,
depends on
what's happening what's happening is that, and I've mentioned this many, many times, Keynesian economics, there's only two ways that the American government can make money. Only two ways. And his synopsis of guns and butter are the two ways. Guns, we are supplying them to everyone, imploring them to use them against us. We've sold many, many tons of weapons to Iran. We've sold weapons to Russia.
That's something he learned way back in college, Wade.
We've sold weapons to everybody in hopes of them using them against us so that we can wage a larger war. That's how Hussein and those guys were targets. It's a real shame that the only way that we want to make money is by guns, because nobody will take our butter. Nobody will buy our rancid food that we send out.
I think you're kind of distorting the. You're distorting the theory. What it means is that in order to keep the butter, which is a productive economy, we have to use guns and threats to maintain our position in the world. And it's also called gunboat diplomacy.
Is that the butter was one of our leverage tools for making money. I don't know where. I mean, gunboat diplomacy is what you said, but it's not
think
the
of
same
countries
thing
like Iran and North Korea that we don't give medical supplies to because we disagree with their policies, and we cut them off like a splintered vein, and they got people dying of cancer there and other things because they can't get their hands on the medical supplies. I think Ben was going to jump in and say Iran, North Korea, and there's a couple more. Go ahead, Ben. I heard your voice.
Yeah, I think Trump is trying to avoid going to war over more resources, because I know what you're saying, Don, and that's true to a point, that wealth, power, resources have all been gained and lost in war. And I think what Trump is doing with starting the Space Force, it might sound weird to some people, but I think he's thinking future economy to avoid taking over other lands like we've done in other countries eventually for resources. He's setting up a security system where we could mine in space, and before you can even mine anywhere, you have to be secure. So setting up a space force, people think it's a waste of money and we can't afford it right now, but if you think about it, look at how many resources. We're getting better and better at bringing things to the surface as far as resources. Name it, and we're better at mining it, like copper, lithium, all the things, and oil, all of the things that make our economy go. We've had to fight for. And if you open up space, you have to be secure there. So this Space Force thing I think is a gateway to creating a new economy that could actually get us out of debt without a war.
So,
That'd be nice.
People don't realize it's totally necessary, because cyber hacking and people and shooting down satellites is the war of the future. And basically, you can shut down a country if you take down the satellite network. You can't do any information, any business, any GPS navigation, any all that stuff is dependent on your satellite. So Russia and China are well ahead of us. We actually have to catch up, and people just aren't aware of it. Like our conversation right now, your YouTube, your Facebook, all that stuff is going on satellite. And if we can't keep that secure, we're going to go down in flames, and people just don't even realize it.
And another thing about conventional versus modern warfare, the more technology we implement into our forces, the more vulnerable we are, because some of these countries that are struggling on the economic side are really, really good at hacking. For example, North Korea has some extremely good hacking teams that can get in, and so does China. And a lot of countries you've never even heard of have hackers that are world class. And the more technology we rely on, the more we're at danger. We can't just stand and fight with muskets anymore. We have so much technology that we have to rely on through our systems. But the more things that are online and across, broadbands and stuff, everything can be hacked nowadays. So we have to be in control where our satellites are.
Yeah, but who is in control ultimately? It doesn't seem, with all this, I don't want to bring up the Mueller investigation, but it seems like there's a lot of room for error with our new technology.
It's a struggle right now. There's a war going on behind the scenes, and everything you hear on the news has nothing to do with the war that's going on behind the scenes. There's a power struggle between the globalists that have been in control this whole time and Trump, who's trying to destroy what they've built. And their plan is evil. Trump is trying to fix it. That's why so many people hate him.
Globalists. I don't like globalists either.
The globalists
look at the whole.
I think evil's a strong word.
The globalists
it is a strong word.
The globalists are evil. They're Ben is right on point. The globalists have no affinity towards either party. They go whichever party is in power is the strongest at the time for their own purposes, and they're playing both sides against the middle, and making everybody worried about what's going on, at the front door or down the street or whatever. Their agenda is to split us so that we have no power, and by splitting us, they want us to actually be stronger in our beliefs, our polarized beliefs, so that they can take advantage of everybody. They can take advantage of the weak and the strong.
Well, consider the whole Mueller investigation is about the fact that the Russians hacked the DNC. Is cyber terror, and the fact that they were offering information to Trump and to anyone in opposition. So, just if you ask how important is this is the whole country is on a stalemate and divided in half over cyber terrorism. So we've got to be up on satellites and all that kind of stuff. Information being swapped and so on.
But the DNC wasn't necessarily hacked.
Right.
There's people out there who think Seth Rich stole information from Podesta from the inside because he was angry that his candidate was Bernie, and he was angry that they basically just stonewalled Bernie and chose Hillary, and he eventually was murdered. So that's a conspiracy theory that makes a lot of sense. And they wanted to point fingers at Russia because if you're dealing with the boogeyman yourself, why wouldn't you point fingers and say the opposition was doing it? It works on everyone. I mean, on half the population believes it, even though they've never studied anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's one thing that's almost always
that a lot of the sources for hacking were from Russia. It wasn't just for the Trump thing, but it was for campaigns that were even occurring this year.
They've already admitted that Russia did not affect our voting system one bit. Russia didn't even affect our voting system at all. If anything, China had more of an influence, and even more than China, illegal votes had more of an influence on our election, but nobody's going to say that.
Well, I said it myself that no matter what was showing up on the side of my Facebook wall, it didn't influence my vote, at least for the national-based election.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that first of all, they're starting to retrace their steps. They're starting to backtrack on how much the influence on the Russian hacking was. But the real hacking that nobody wants to mention, and it's verified, is the voter machine hacking. Those voting machines that are online, on the internet access, they're susceptible to really easy hacking. The voting machines in many parts of the country that are owned by, in some instances, the one percenters, and they are the ones who are capable of changing votes after they've been submitted. The machines automatically change those votes. There was and I've mentioned this several times also, there was a mysterious, in 16, let's see, no, 15, what would it been, 14. When was, 12, Obama's reign, and then the first Trump reign. There have been voting machines all over the country that have been found to be hacked.
Well, me and Albert did a show on that called Hacking Democracy. The Diebold machines were hacked. They caught the Bush administration was in cahoots with the top dogs of the Ohio Republicans, and there was a letter that was found saying that don't worry, we'll organize this race in your favor. So it's on Netflix. It's called Hacking Democracy.
Yeah, no,
right, but if you
and
look
that was
right
an
now,
inside job by Americans.
Right. Look at what's happened recently with Trump. Trump is sideways with Soros and the Koch brothers now. So both sides that both parties love to throw at each other, like conservatives love to say, "Oh, you're just a George Soros shill," and Democrats like to say, "Oh, you're just working for the Koch brothers." Now Trump's sideways with both of them. He called them both out. So he's obviously not on either side of the deep state elite.
Mm-hmm.
But he's Trump.
Okay, I have a question, Ben, though. In spite of everything good you think Trump does, why do you think everything he does is so great?
So what?
Everything. You act like he's above board on everything, when in truth he's a very flawed human being, and he makes a lot of verbal.
No, it's not about the human being, Trump. It's about the mission that he's a part of. He was selected to be president probably around the time of 9/11. This has been a plan ever since 9/11. Because there's some good people that know exactly what happened, and they need somebody in there, and everything has been set up ever since. They helped him.
Well, I'm not saying that he has a strong personality. I'm not knocking that, but he is wishy-washy on some foreign policy and domestic policy, and not everything he does is above question. Like it just seems like you're always.
It's not.
In the past,
nothing
you've always
anybody
brought up,
does is above question.
Okay, well, it just seems like in the news cycle daily, I see a lot of confusing, disturbing things happen, and he contributes to that with the way that he communicates. But that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not going to harp on it. I just find it disturbing that you, as a well-conditioned intellectual, just goes hook, line, and sinker with everything he says.
Well, that's the
do
problem,
you think that?
If you consider yourself an intellectual, and so do all the people who've been running Washington, it's not about being intellectual, it's about winning. And people who have been losing for years, like when you live in a factory town, and you can't find work, and your kids are starving, and you have to foreclose, and you lose your house, and then someone says, the country's better, we're more people like us. And then someone who you've been bullied around, and someone shows up and says, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to get you a job
Mm-hmm.
and a house. And it's not going to be given to you. You can work for it. You believe in that person, even if he's a jerk, even if he's not a nice guy.
You and I have discussed that many times, and you always bring up that same scenario. The Rust Belt isn't what it used to be. Manufacturing jobs are few and far between. There are some towns like Superior, Wisconsin, that they happen to have a lot of manufacturing jobs, but the market has progressed into more mid-level jobs that require at least a 9-month degree. And there's not just a bunch of people with heavy boots sitting on the sidelines waiting for the factories to reopen.
Oh, definitely. However, again, you're listening to mainstream journalists that are liberal, slanted, and they hate Trump. They hate everything he stands for. They hate Middle America.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that the issue that you run into is that we don't care anymore about being nice or kind or people's emotions. We care about succeeding. And the fact is, you look at the numbers, the stock market is way up. Confidence is way up. Everyone that is minority, everyone's woman has more jobs than ever, lowest unemployment ever, and then you question his intelligence. You question if he's smart. He beat Hillary Clinton. You question if he's intelligent.
I don't question his intelligence. I question his delivery. But you guys, we do have one flawed thing about this radio show. We always devolve in the same old stupid arguments in the second hour of the show, and I'm the one paying $15 to upload it to YouTube. This has nothing to do with our foreign policy discussion from the first half of the show. And I don't care to discuss Trump's intelligence. I was just asking Ben why he always just flatliner says that he's always putting the best policies forward when that's not definitely always the truth.
I can answer you if you want.
The thing is I don't know if that's Jane. I don't know if that's if that is a good question. I don't know if you want to question Ben's position when he has his position.
The reason I've noticed in the okay, let me explain. Do you want me to tell you why I brought it up to Ben? Because when Ben and I were doing the Clive and Bundy shows, and we did about 4 of them, he had the facts in front of him. He told me how the FBI fucked up. But when it comes to Trump, and I like Michael Pence, by the way, as I told John this week. When it comes to Trump, I think you have to sort through Trump's rhetoric to find out what he's really aiming for, because he's surrounded by a cacophony of unregulated BS talk.
Yeah, but he's making his own brand. You got to understand the one thing about Donald Trump. He loves him some Donald Trump. He is his own brand. He's trying to make his own mark that we were talking about earlier. He's trying to be the new Coke, all those other guys we were talking about, Icon and those guys.
It's the Koch brothers and Soros. That's it. At the top, it's Koch brothers and Soros.
And the thing is that now he wants to be Trump. He wants the Koch brothers, Soros, and Trump. And he will do anything to do it. Unfortunately, he wants to change everything in a couple of years, and that's going to be the downfall of him, because he's tackled way too many problems that need really, really intense scrutiny and care, and he doesn't have the intelligence to do that. He can't. I
disagree.
He can't put together a crew.
If you want me to,
he can't put together a crew that could pull down another man's zipper and let him pee. He can't even do that. His crew is so selfish and one-sided and probably proponents of their own agendas, even though they have to reluctantly go with his. That
no,
they can't
that's
do
not
anything.
that's not accurate, Don. That's not accurate because what the Democrats are doing is nothing but obstructing anything he tries to do, and he's trying to follow the Constitution. He's trying to let Congress decide on things, but the Democrats are pulling the e-brake on everything.
The Congress is the person that the guy is trying to pull down the zipper for to help pee, and they can't even pee. That's the sad thing about it.
Yeah,
Congress
look at why.
It's all Republican, Ben. That's why. It can't even get out of its own way. It can't get him.
No, the obstruction movement is doing nothing but costing us money. We pay them to go around in circles because they can't agree.
The obstructionist movement, though, was started by Mitch McConnell the very first day that Obama took office. And he said, we will not, that's what he said, Bill, work with this president. And that was a quote. That's first day. That's when obstructionism started. And that's where we're
If I was in his position, I would have done the same thing. I will not let a socialist destroy my Constitution for any reason, even if it's the president.
He's your president. That you just mentioned. He was voted in. So was Obama. He was voted in. And at least Obama was voted in with not only the Electoral College, but the populist vote. Trump didn't have the populist vote, and I doubt if he had any quality vote at all.
I think it needs to go beyond obstruction versus not obstruction. It's like, okay, well, where do we want the country headed? I want more freedom, less 200 million people having to share everything and make decisions together, and more independence. And I think we have to look at those factors. Most every war in history has been over somebody was trying to control somebody else that they shouldn't be trying to control. That's almost always the case.
Yeah,
so letting people try to control other people will have a lot less trouble.
Freedom is definitely the goal, and that's why I fight so hard.
Well, freedom is not what we're getting.
No, it's not what we're
Let
getting
me explain. If you want me to explain why I'm supporting Trump more than ever now, is because I was afraid to vote for him. He seemed like a loose cannon, but I knew about Hillary Clinton already. I was backed into a corner, and I didn't know how my vote was going to turn out. If Trump won, I was still nervous. But he has proven to be a good vote for me. I'm proud of my vote because he's done the actions that he's done. Who cares about the personality or the rhetoric or the recordings that people have produced? Who cares? The actions that he's put forward and letting Congress decide things, that's fine. That's fine with me. Everything that he's done, he's not going around the world apologizing for previous administrations. He said those people were stupid to let you take advantage of us. No more.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the president saying that to everyone. And illegal immigration, he campaigned on illegal immigration, and I agree with that. Anybody that comes into this country to get on welfare immediately, they didn't pay taxes with me for the last 20 years. They came in here from a basically a worse situation than they're going to get coming here. But it wasn't them that was paying taxes. It was me and everybody like me, working and paying and struggling and pulling the economy through rough times, and watching these billionaires and watching everybody just cruise right through life while we're just struggling, and then we're importing more people who need cash. I agree with that. And I don't want them voting for democracy, because democracy, all you need is the majority. So the more people you import that vote for democracy, the more democracy you get.
And the sad thing about it, Ben, is that all these immigrants are coming in because the 1%ers and all of their proxies are needing their services for jobs that nobody else will do. Nobody else will do that you don't see too many people of the 1% persuasion actually, I don't know, on the farm.
We have plenty of people here that do jobs that nobody wants to do. I'm one of them. We don't need to import people just to do the bad jobs, because we have people here waiting to do them.
That's why they're here. Like I said, when the slaves came here, not everybody's talking about black people. The slaves built this country off of the sweat of their back. The Hispanics, like I said, as a kid, I'm down there in San Diego at National City at the border quite a few times, and I'm looking at in the morning boatloads of Hispanic farm workers and hospitality workers and Beverly Hills maids and butlers coming in the morning and going back at night. I see this laziness in the 1%ers who don't want to continue getting their hands dirty at a certain point and need these immigrants. That's how our country was built, on immigrant slave labor. So why?
Right, but Don, let me stop you there. Because I see the same laziness in the millennials nowadays, because the immigrants come in and do all the work that millennial age people used to do. Now they sit back and let a Mexican person mow their lawn, when that should be their job until they leave home.
Exactly. And that's what the problem is, and that's why the right, or whomever who is crying about the immigration issue, should just blame themselves. They should be on look at themselves in the mirror and say, I'm the one who dissuaded the Border Patrol from stopping my brother from bringing over 10 immigrants for sale. That's my fault. That my uncle, the judge, who stopped the coyote who was being paid by his, cousin-in-law, didn't didn't fine him, and if he did have an adjudication, there was no admission of guilt. They just got fined, a couple $1,000. Their fault. That's the white, the 1%ers. I promised myself I wouldn't go racial.
You almost said it's the white people's fault.
I know.
Don and Ben, I agree with limited immigration, and I also don't think that Europe should solve all the problems of the Middle East. Like, yes, it was nice Angela Merkel took in 1 million Syrians, but technically she probably should have only taken in maybe 75,000. Like, 1 million is a bit too much. It's too much.
She couldn't help it.
They just those people have to go back to their land someday and figure it out.
Yeah, but they can't.
They can take our policies. They can take our Constitution with them. Let me put it into a perspective. If you live in a big city, let's use Seattle for instance. If you live in a big city and you import 1,000 Russians, you're going to get added culture. If you import 1 million Russians, Seattle's going to be Russia.
Right.
Yeah. Hollywood is Armenia. If you've ever been to Hollywood, it's a big chunk of Armenia.
That's what's
just
happening.
Think about what I just said, though. You can apply that to any other. You can apply that to any country sending immigrants to us.
Well,
look at Southern California.
Philadelphia has entire communities that make up entire wards that the Muslims are pushing candidates, and the candidates are winning, and they're getting ready to change part of the city of Philadelphia law to include Sharia law. And
that's why I'm glad Trump made the last 2 Supreme Court picks. I'm glad I voted for Trump for the last 2 Supreme Court choices.
Well, he hasn't had the second one yet.
I second that. Well, true.
Yeah. But you know, the bottom line, the finality of the ending of the story is that there was a overriding county judiciary or county court system or county commission system that stopped them for now. That they would not be able to take that power and change their laws to Sharia law. So I don't know if that's constitutional or not.
No, one thing you need to understand about Sharia law is in their culture, Sharia and law are the same thing. So Sharia is law. That does not fit here in the United States. Their word for law is religion. I mean, well, I said that wrong, but Sharia is the law. There is no difference.
These cities are so gerrymandered that they're packed with, in this case, Muslims. And like you said, there are other things like Armenians. I used to live in Pasadena, and that's where a great many live. And, you know, that's what's happening all around the country is that these pockets are becoming inculcated with everyone of a same race and religion that what you just mentioned, the scenario you just mentioned is coming true.
And it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if the people didn't need welfare, and it wouldn't matter if they voted for the same kind of free market liberty values. But yeah, when people vote in socialism, that becomes concerned.
Can you imagine being a farming family from Dearborn, Michigan, who's third, fourth, fifth generation farming family from Dearborn, Michigan? That's not their town anymore. That's not their country anymore. I feel for people like that.
There aren't too many farms in Dearborn.
I'm just saying. Somebody who survived, generation after generation in a small town, watched it grow into a city, and then watched it flip overnight, basically, into an Islamic city.
Right.
That is not fair, and that's not constitutional.
Well, why not?
They have a bell over the city like 6 times a day for Muslim prayer, and it intertwines with the church bells.
I know that.
The only thing in Dearborn for a while there was the Ford plant and a warehouse, a couple warehouses. That was all that Dearborn had, so it was a vacuum. And a lot of Detroit was a vacuum. The lower, I believe, east side has turned Hispanic, and it's extremely Hispanic. And then you've got, of course, Woodard Avenue and everything. That's Islamic.
I'm only using Dearborn because it's the worst example of Islamic takeover in our country. It's the fastest and worst example of Islamic takeover of any city in our country.
And I'm just saying that was the vacuum.
Well, the Muslims had to settle somewhere. Where do you want them to go, Ben?
The 1%ers left. It was just like.
Do you want to ask me that?
The reason for
you don't even go to. How often do you go to church? Why are they stepping on your toes?
The one reason that they are doing Space Force, and Ben knows it, is to get. And he didn't say it, but it's to get the hell off of Earth. Once the Earth has been turned into a complete toilet, which we see it in our faces,
Jesus,
and they deny science.
Your illustrations are hideous.
They deny science, then there's nowhere to go but us. We cannot stay on this trash planet when nobody believes in science. That's ridiculous. And
I go to a Christian church where we exalt the earth and we cherish the environment.
Good.
We're peace, love, and hippies.
Yeah.
Okay. James, when's the last time you saw a Jehovah's Witness strap a bomb to themselves and blow something up?
No.
Are you trying to say
They
that
get
the
a lot of
Muslims in
criticism.
Dearborn are walking around with dynamite in their belt?
No, he said Jehovah's Witness.
That's
I
not.
know
That's not what I'm saying.
I'm being.
But there's a higher rate of explosion with that
Why are
much
you
population.
asking me that? Some people find their
I'm just
pamphlets.
saying. I'm putting things in perspective. If you see a community of Jehovah's Witnesses, are you going to think that one of them is going to spontaneously explode?
No,
I don't
but
necessarily think that with a group of Muslims either.
You, if there's 300 million Americans and we import 10,000 Muslims and they happen to congregate in Dearborn, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to farm 4 of them out to each city in Michigan so they blend in?
Then it becomes a constitutional thing. What if their religion says it's okay to beat your wife? Is that okay with you?
No.
So what are you going to do about it?
They have to submit to American law because they're in the United States.
Yeah.
That's my point. That's exactly
I don't know what
my
I'm going to do about it. I'm not going to go knock on a guy's door and find out if he's beating his wife.
You have to. Well, I think they can do some background checks when people come in, and I have no problem. Let Muslims in, but don't let theocrats in. Don't let people who want to control others, who want to use violence to push their agenda.
Right.
Those kind of people shouldn't be welcome.
Mm-hmm. Good way to.
How do you
I guess it's a loaded question, Ben, because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar became Muslim, and so did Ahmad Rashad, and nobody ever questioned what they were doing behind closed doors.
So did you guys hear the news report about the guy in New Mexico that was training children for school shootings?
No, I didn't.
So there was
Everybody heard that. You guys are kidding.
Well, you look at who he's tied to.
I hadn't heard.
He's tied to Linda Sarsour. He's tied to Muslim politicians. This dude was training children to shoot up schools, and the news has stayed pretty quiet about it. Not surprising to me, because I already know what they want us to do. They want us to be wrapped up into superficial nonsense instead of knowing what the real dangers are.
Well, we were talking about the news and Trump and stuff, and I think I heard like CNN go on for like 10 minutes about one thing he said, and it's like, that's like, you got to get perspective. Like, how long does it take one person to make a little comment? And, CNN is going to focus your attention on what they want your attention on. So they're going to take one passing comment he said and blow it out of proportion and ignore all kinds of other things. Yeah, I mean, the news will push bias by what they point their cameras at and what they focus their attention on.
Right. You might as well get your news from Stephen Colbert if you're going to watch CNN and MSNBC only. Do you have your computer in front of you, Jane?
Jane? Job, and I'm cleaning in the kitchen right now, but I could walk downstairs and go down there to the computer.
Yeah, you should bring it up. New Mexico, the New Mexico guy that was training children.
While I'm walking downstairs, which will take 30 seconds, I want to make a comment. I returned my television set, my cable box twice in 2016 because I didn't like how the mainstream news handled the presidential election, and that includes bashing Trump. I didn't like how they dissected every word he said for 20 minutes at night on Anderson Cooper. Other reporters like that girl whose name it's Katie something. I can't think of her name now. She has long. Erin Burnett. Like, people like her are more fair and they stab into the heart of the articles, but it does annoy me how all the major news networks are so biased. I can't find a decent one on the mainstream channels except for the BBC World News, and all they do is cover highlights. Okay, I'm looking it up, and you guys can keep. Could you guys talk while I do it?
I just assume everybody's biased anymore. You know, it's like there is no unbiased source. Everybody's biased, so just I think that helps.
It's not about how biased you are. It's how much sense you make in your justification for being biased.
Yeah, it's okay to be biased, but you have good arguments. Yeah, and I'd rather somebody admit they're biased. Just be honest. Just be honest that you're biased.
Right. Because at heart, I'm a libertarian, but
before I bring up
I
the
chose
New Mexico thing,
the way I chose.
De Blasio, the New York Mayor De Blasio was on CNN today saying how balanced CNN is and how Fox News is, and he was going on and on and on and on.
No surprise.
Okay, I found it, Ben. Man found with 11 children on filthy New Mexico compound was training kids to commit school shootings, prosecutors say. And he emphasized the word filthy.
Where did he get all of those children?
Well, it was a foreigner, by the way his name looks up. His name, Siraj Wahaj, was conducting weapons training on the property in Amalia near the Colorado border. A foster parent of one of the 11 children allegedly stated to law enforcement that Wahaj had trained the child in the use of an assault rifle in preparation for future school shootings, according to a criminal complaint.
And where was your CNN on that one? Where was your MSNBC on that one? Where's your news?
Yeah. I don't know.
They were talking.
This is an ABC
they were talking about
news
Trump's
coverage.
personality.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm only asking you, Jane.
CNN did cover it 4 days ago. I found it on CBS,
but did they
CNN,
cover it on
ABC,
TV?
NBC. I have no idea. I don't have my eyes glued to the TV set. I work 100 hours a week. There, I got out of it.
Yeah.
Are we friends or frenemies? I don't want to be put on the spot.
I think we're all friends, aren't we?
Stepping up your game.
I still like everybody. Is there any word about why the guy was teaching him to do school shootings? Like what the motivation was, what his goal was, anything?
I'll have to bring the article back up. I just closed it out, so hold on a minute.
Oh, that's okay.
Nothing
sure they're gonna.
Nothing that I've seen.
They're going to waterboard that out of him.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
It doesn't say why.
Children were emaciated. They couldn't even move hardly to lift up a gun or anything like that. So there are the motives are questionable, other than just school shootings.
Don, you're mixing that up with a story in Florida, I think.
No, the compound. The guy was at a compound, but he had the 11 children. They were emaciated. They hadn't had much food. The compound was bordered. It was like 5 acres or something like that, 10 acres.
Oh, you're right. It was 11 kids between ages of 1 and 15, and they discovered the remains of a boy, which means he died probably from starvation.
Right.
Wow.
And so the thing is that the compound was so isolated. It had tires bordering, like, I'd have to say, almost probably a half a square mile around the where the kids lived, where they all lived.
Don, I hate to tell you this, but he was black.
No,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The bottom line is that there has not been a school shooting by Muslims. Period. So this is going to be. This would have been
Wait
new.
a second. Was he good or was he evil? That's all that matters.
He's evil as hell. I have 2 more facts about him. Wahaj had been wanted by the police since December when he took his 3-year-old son from his son's mother home in Jonesboro, Georgia, to perform an exorcism. Wahaj is also the son of a Brooklyn man who was indicted as a co-conspirator in a terrorist plot to bomb New York City in 1993.
So who's been letting this guy run around our country?
Well,
They
he
know
is
who
an
he is.
American. He was born here.
It doesn't matter. Who has been letting him
obviously-
run around?
Well, they didn't know,
he's not
right?
even that
Until now.
attractive. I
Well,
wonder
they
how
know.
he got.
The NSA and the FBI know everything about everyone.
Ben, everybody knows, the FBI knows every Ku Klux Klan member. They know every Aryan Nation. They know every Black Panther. They know. They just don't have the manpower or the inclination for spending the money to incarcerate them.
Do they know about us?
Jihad
I think
Jane
they
is
do.
first on the 10 most wanted.
I think
Then
they
why
do
can't
have the
someone
manpower,
advertise
because all they have to do is notify the local sheriff. That's it. They haven't been doing that in all of these situations. Luckily, something happened to stop this dude, but this is going on all over our country, and somebody back behind the scenes knows about it right now and isn't doing something about it. This is a pattern.
You're right. You want to know why you're right, Ben? Because the FBI had been watching the compound for months after being led to it in their hunt for the 3-year-old boy who was abducted from Georgia. He was also a disabled child. And why didn't the FBI go in there and see these kids were starving and go intervene and try to get them out of there so they could get fed?
That's exactly what my question is always when these things happen. Because you always go backwards from a crime and you see, oh, yeah, he was being watched. So why didn't they go in and get his ass months ago or a year ago? Because why? Why? Why do we pay them our tax dollars to sit there and watch crimes happen when they know it's going to happen?
True.
It is pretty sad that if the FBI, if they watch let's say they watch the compound remotely and they could see that kids were hungry, they should have frickin' done something. That's not fair. Go ahead, Don.
The kids are not the point. I went over this soliloquy earlier, Ben, where they've got, when we play two sides against the middle, you don't care about the kids, you don't care about people, families, you don't care about anything. You just care about your best interest. And this is a case where the best interest is not the kids, but it's the process of the surveillance. Everybody's getting paid during the process of the surveillance, which is, everybody who is in the correction system, everybody who's a lawyer, everybody who's a doctor for treatment. You've got governmental programs against violence for kids, and then you've got other governmental programs for violence for kids. You've got all these entities paying everybody against the middle so that everybody gets paid. That's what this whole thing is.
And that's what I'm tired of. I am so sick and tired of ongoing investigations being the excuse why people can't talk. Especially
you know how much
when
money
they're in front of Congress. Well, I can't answer that because it's ongoing.
People should be jailed for contempt for beating around the bush so much. It's so sad to watch these congressional hearings and know nothing. Absolutely, positively nothing.
And I'm sorry, but Peter Strzok was one of the worst examples I've ever seen. Peter Strzok and everybody
in Congress. Everybody in Congress should be put in jail for that Peter Strzok.
Why Congress? They can't even get the answers from the FBI when they question them. The FBI obviously has more power than Congress.
Well, all of them acted like asses. I don't give a fuck, French toast, what we're talking about here with Peter Strzok and all these other. I mean, what was worse than Peter Strzok were the times Jeff Sessions was up there last year. That was the most, I could almost barf looking at him lying all over the place. And this is
Trump just called Sessions out. Trump just called Sessions out yesterday or today on Twitter.
He's called Sessions out since the first time they went in the bathroom and Sessions opened his fly so Trump could pee. That was, 20 years ago. He's called Sessions out.
Look at the situation. Sessions and Trump is a complicated situation because Sessions recused himself. Now Mueller is in charge of who knows what. We don't even know what he's looking for. He's just in there being a second fiddle in our system.
Mueller wants a name for himself too. Mueller was snubbed by the Department of Justice 18 years ago, or something like that. One of those before he became special prosecutor. I think his previous, I don't know where he was at, but he was snubbed, and he has a thing against some of that deep state that we've been talking about. So he's taking it out now he wants to take it out on Trump. He has the upper hand. He has his own agenda too. All these people are sickening because they've got their agendas and they don't have you or me or anybody else as a concern. They can fuck a little old lady. Fuck a vet. They don't give a shit. These people are sick.
Jeez,
they're
Don,
inbred.
cool it.
What? They're inbred and they're big white men. And that's all they care about. The white women are just following behind them. And I said I wasn't going to do that. The women are just following behind them like I don't even know what. When they know that they're not citizens yet. They're not free yet. Women should be outraged. They should be clawing every man's eyes out because they're not.
Well, no,
yet.
Not every man,
including yours.
Everybody.
Back to the topic of ongoing investigations costing the taxpayer money. Not having to answer a question to Congress is unforgivable.
That's what I'm saying.
Congress should have the power because we elect them. That's how this country was set up. Congress is our voice, and if there's an entity that's not constitutional that has more power than who we elect, that's not what our country is. That's what we fought to get rid of.
And that's why when that boy for the Supreme Court that Obama nominated never got a chance. That was unconstitutional. That should have never happened. He should have had his. Well, it wasn't unconstitutional, but it was against.
Who, Merrick Garland?
Garland. That he should have been given. He should have been given. Oh yes, yes way. He should have at least been given the hearing.
Obama has proven himself to give the keys to deep state only.
Yeah, well, the thing
I don't want any of his decisions to go through. I want Obama to be wiped from our history as far as everything he legislated.
That's wrong. That's wrong. He was the president, and that's exactly what we're talking about, Mitch McConnell in the first day. And that's exactly
no, he was a constitutional lawyer, and he proved himself to do nothing but undermine the Constitution. He learned the legal system good enough where he could attack the Constitution through the system. He was the ultimate person to beat the system through the inside of the system. And his specialty was the Constitution, and he proved himself to be the enemy of the Constitution.
Well, the thing is that he wasn't the enemy of the Constitution in the aspect that he was trying to open a little bit of the language of the Constitution. That's all he was doing. He was trying to make a few things equal. The president that we have now is doing almost 70% of it in order, and that's circumventing.
Do you really want to get into an executive order fight between Obama and Trump?
No.
Do you really want to go there?
No, Obama did it too. I'm not saying that he didn't use his constitutional powers authority. I'm just saying that at least he did do part of his legislation through the legislature, but Trump has not used legislative processes at all. I mean, he has a few times, but he hasn't used that at all, and that I'm not saying either one of them was right by using executive orders, but the thing is that at least Obama had an excuse with Mitch McConnell coming out there and saying we will not work with this president. So at least the liberals have.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Mitch McConnell. I'm not a fan.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He said.
But if I was in Mitch McConnell's position, I would have been 10 times worse than him with Obama, because, like I said before, your actions prove who you are. I would have stopped him with everything. Obama wanted to legislate the use of drone strikes on American citizens.
I beg pardon?
Did you know that Obama wanted to legislate drone strikes against American citizens? So did Harry Reid. He was pushing it.
And that was overseas.
Do you know who stopped him? Rand Paul.
Yeah, well, I remember that. And that was, I don't understand some of these policies. That's why I'm working with some of the third-party people to see if we can get a third party going. The thing is that I have a lot of complaints about Obama, but he was put in office to save the country. And that's what you have to understand. The Republicans refused to put it a fight after Bush because they knew that everything was going to come out in the wash if another Republican came into power. So everybody and their mom.
No, Obama was not put in place to save anything. He was put in place to save power for the elites.
No,
if you want power, you have to implement socialism, which inevitably will be communism. That focuses the power to the top elites. It doesn't matter what the people want.
Well, the people are
it's centralized planning.
It's
dominoes. First comes democracy, then comes socialism, then comes the dictatorship. That's what his plan was.
I'd rather have it over an oligarchy or aristocracy. I'd rather have
a constitutional republic, because that way I'm guaranteed my own inalienable rights.
Right.
That's the only thing that saves me is what our country was supposed to be, which is not what we've been following.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not what we've been following at all. And that's why we need to have clear and distinct discussion that would be able to rectify some of these problems with a rational mind, without money and Citizens United involved. I work for a super PAC. I have to be extremely careful when I do
without the ACLU and without the NAACP. I'm sorry, but ACLU, NAACP, Citizens United, I don't care who it is. Get out of my life.
They're not throwing money at this. So, that's the difference between Citizens United and the NAACP and ACLU. ACLU is simply, they're more or less non-profit trying to work out social justice
and the SPLC
in a legislative way. But the Citizen United Super PAC are in there simply to make money, and they don't have to give it back after the campaign's over, if they lose, whatever.
Well, what the hell's the benefit in the SPLC then? What are they in it for?
The ACLU?
No, Southern Poverty Law Center. What are they doing?
Oh,
why are they in it? They pick and choose who they want to support.
They're not doing anything. They're just sitting around looking stupid. That's most of these organizations, they've already reached their prime capacity. where they can't do much more because they don't have either the funds or the manpower or the media voice, the media contact that they used to have. These people are just dim stars ready to just blow out.
No.
And
here's a question. Why did the ACLU not support what the Bundys were doing in Oregon? Because that's a civil liberty right there, to be able to protest and petition your government for redress of grievances. That's First Amendment right there. The last sentence of the First Amendment is the redress of grievances. So why didn't they support what they were doing?
That's a good point. The thing is that they did not support the Bundys. They didn't
say a damn thing about it. I think they attacked them, if I remember right.
I don't think so. I think they left that one alone. I work with the ACLU.
Even if they just left it alone, why did they leave it alone?
It's the same question as why aren't they supporting the white nationalists' right to protest? That's the same question. I mean, they should be there.
Civil liberty. Do you get to pick and choose which civil liberty, which person tries to use a civil liberty? These guys, when they get up there, they become chair people and presidents of the organization. They develop relations with the people who they, again, playing both sides in the middle in many instances, that they're supposed to be enemies with. So I already have the answer. The union. Union is a Democrat thing. So they support Democrats.
Nope. You're absolutely not. My unions are 60% Republican here in Nevada.
ACLU.
So, what about it?
Union. They support Democrats only. They don't care about anybody else.
In a way, yes.
No, it's not in a way. It's what they do for their income. It's what their agenda is. It's what they do. They are. Union is Democrat. Democrats own unions. That's the only way they survive, and that's their agenda.
And as I said, not here in Nevada.
So if it's a union, it's Democrat.
The Republicans own the unions here in Nevada.
That's different.
So obviously the ACLU doesn't have a problem with anything going on in Nevada?
Hardly.
They've just abandoned Nevada?
No, we don't have a whole lot of cases coming through here. We don't have a plethora of ACLU cases that have to be adjudicated statewide. They're just not real active. They're here, but we don't have a lot of things that we're putting out because in all actuality, we should be here in Nevada much stronger support of not only the unions, but Indian tribes and indigenous tribes who are coming through here. We have one of the biggest sex trafficking state locations there is in the country. A lot more. I have to say 70% of the West Coast sex trafficking goes through Las Vegas and Reno. So, we've got those.
Right.
We've got all kinds of...
I don't really care about the ACLU because they don't care about anything I care about. They pick and choose who they want to support. And I noticed that they were nowhere to be found. When I watched the Burns, Oregon protests go down, I was really paying attention to everything because the leadership of the protest did everything by the book. They wrote letters to everyone in charge, everyone. They wrote letters to the Department of Interior, and all the way down the line in leadership. And they were practicing the First Amendment, they were practicing the Second Amendment. ACLU had nothing to do with it. So as far as I'm concerned, they are a nothing. They are nothing but a political, hack.
Well, I know that I work with them for certain things, and here in Nevada, it's not like they are the strongest entity or organization in the state. They don't have a whole lot to do.
Well, it doesn't matter if they're strong or not. I mean, they're nothing. They have proven themselves to not be what they say they are. If you do everything by the book, if you practice your rights by the book, you should have support from both sides.
Exactly.
Yeah. But the only rules that were broken were by the leadership and by the people appointed by the leadership. In that case, in Oregon.
Okay. There's no. If you ask anything about the reason for life in America, there's no logical answer. Why did we start this country out with slaves? No reason. As much as the financial reason is there's the killing and separation of families started then, and they are continuing until this day. So all these 1% and their lovers are, they're the ones that need to look in the mirror and figure out why they let this happen, because they did.
Mm-hmm. Well, the 1% and the slaves are decades apart. I mean, it's generations apart. The 1% now doesn't have much to do with slavery then.
It's time for the conclusions, guys.
It's time for the conclusions. They have today, especially through inheritance, came from that slave trade. Anyway, go ahead. Is John still on? He can do his conclusion because he hasn't said anything about it.
Actually, yes, I am actually here. And very interesting discussion. And I think the main thing is to enjoy free speech, enjoy voicing your opinions, and don't get upset. Mm-hmm. Enjoy it. Don't get like, oh, my goodness, we can't talk about these things. No, you should talk about it. Enjoy it. Be proud of what you believe in. And enjoy being free in America. Have a sense of humor. Don't take stuff so serious. Oh, my goodness. It's going to be the end of the world. Well, actually, not yet, but soon. So that's my concluding thought is enjoy freedom, share your mind, don't back down, and, be open to both sides of the argument.
Yep.
Okay. My conclusion is no matter how, if we're inhabitants of America or Japan or China or somewhere else, it's not worth it to kill 70,000 people in one day. It's just not worth it. So let's try to look at us not as a globalist, but citizens of the world, and put our principles before our national goals and our personalities.
Yep, I agree. Should I go?
Anybody else?
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, we'll become more humane and see the humanity around the world and not have these all-out wars. But I don't know. I won't get too hopeful. But free speech. I'm very worried. I'm so glad. I'm so glad we have an open conversation here, because I know there's word that Facebook and YouTube have been banning a lot of unpopular opinions. So it's good that we can still speak freely here.
Why don't you bring that guy up that you were going to bring up, Alex Jones?
Yeah. Did you guys hear about Alex Jones? Was just there was a combined effort to get him booted off of was it Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and Discus and Lincoln, like all within like about 24 hours he got booted off of all of them. And it really concerns me, like the reaction.
Ben, do you know who he is?
Oh yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah.
I'm really horrified at how people are saying, "Oh, that's good. He's hateful." It's like, well, I've listened a few times and I'm not finding a lot of hate, and that's just a label to drop on them to make it so people don't listen, and that's just an excuse. But I think it's interesting. Like, it seems like they just politically want to shut him up. And
the strangest thing about that, if I could jump in for a second, the strangest thing about that is that back in the Bush Jr. administration, Alex Jones was not as popular, but he was questioning why we went to war in Iraq, and a lot of liberals who are anti-war were supporting Alex Jones and getting their information from him. And now that Trump is in office, the same faction, it might not be the same people, but the same faction banning free speech just to shut him up, just because he's might be supporting Trump.
Yep.
So it's really strange that who has the power and who controls the knobs behind the scenes now, because they can just flip-flop back and forth however they want to and stop speech from happening. And it's not about the person speaking. It's
the conservatives are fighting back, though.
It's not about banning somebody from speaking. It's banning the audience from hearing.
Yeah, and it's scary how many regular people, how they've been twisting people's minds to be like, yes, this is right. He's a crazy guy. He's confusing people. He's lying. He's like, this is like the Spanish Inquisition. Like, oh no, this is wrong beliefs and this is heresy. Basically they're claiming heresy now. And how many people are like, yes, this is right. Like, that's what scares me. We need to believe in free speech.
Well, they
don't even know what he's saying. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They know what they're doing. This is a test mission. Because they don't really necessarily care about Alex Jones. They're testing this on him because they're going to use it later on other people. They're going to use it on individuals that have their own news stations, because that's where everything's moving towards. It's moving towards the small people that stay in tune, and they do it with Patreon and GoFundMe and this and that. They have all their supporters give a buck here and there, and they stay with their eyes glued to the real news, and they do their own research. And that's where Alex Jones got started. But they're going to test it out on a big, pillar of the alternative news community, and they're going to see how it pans out. It's going to be Alex Jones, Breitbart, and then it's going to go down the line smaller and smaller with people with, 500, 5,000 followers. They're going to start banning whoever they want to.
Yeah, because it's, really it's about, you're not supposed to have these opinions. You're supposed to agree with us. We'll tell you. It's the high priest, We'll tell you how to think. Stefan Molyneux said the media is like the high priest, and they're accusing Trump of being anti-free speech. No, he's just criticizing them. He's not trying to ban them. But these guys are, but these other people are trying to ban. They want to silence, and that's scary.
There's a problem though with it, and that is that if people start yelling for the government to intervene and to control this, all they're going to do is ban conservative people. In other words, for more people crying out like, you got to, step in and correct this, No, it's a free market. This is a, these are organizations that have that right to air things or not. It's not like public radio. So there's a downside, a flip to it. If they really start clamping down from the government's just going to shut down right wing. The liberal press is already has a field day. It's going to be conservatives who will actually get hurt by it.
Yeah. No, let's have a free market solution. Absolutely.
The market provides and it heals itself. So let it go. I mean, if there's a moron out there spewing nothing but nonsense, let him fizzle out on his own. Everybody, the public opinion will destroy that person. But if somebody's creating, content that's accurate, if they're gathering their own info and there's a following and people actually listen to it and then do their own research and they go back and forth, because that's how the Alex Jones community is. They listen to what he's saying, they go do the research. Then they come back to Alex Jones if their research actually says something right, and that's how it is. There's critical thinking everywhere. A lot of people say, no, this story was BS. So, you got to take it or leave it with Alex Jones. But they still keep coming back because there's something to it every now and then. Mm-hmm. But to just stop him from getting any messages to anybody, that blew up in their face. He has had so many subscribers go to his actual website and just buy his information or go to his free website or whatever. Yeah. But he's had so many people just ditch the other bigwig companies and just go directly to him. They didn't see that happening. They thought they could just stop him in his tracks, but people just went directly to him. He's millionaire now. I mean, he's become way richer because they did that.
Yeah, right, and that's what happens when they spotlight somebody. But the other thing it's similar. At least they can tell a story. Is the Tribune Sinclair talks that went bad. It was all because Sinclair was not playing fair. They were going to have a monopoly anyway, which is why the main reason why it was stopped. But I think it was the main reason it had so much visual or attention. But the bottom line is that they played dirty. They kept information. And these are, the 1%ers. These are the people that are going to be pushing all of the same verbiage, communistic verbiage. We saw that with the 27 states stations that had the same exact words. We've learned it from Melania Trump, and then how some of her speeches, our second one last week, had verbiage that was the same as prominent Democrats. So, we're looking at, and Dane was right about this, about that, one of the parties is that they're starting to live off of lies. And that's the problem. Not what they can do and the things that they promise that they're delivering. It's just that everything is a lie. The doggone Missouri farmers, they're losing everything. You've got the steel plants down there. They're ready to close up shop because of these policies, these terrible, these unconstitutional policies. You've got bike riders, motorcycle riders getting ready to boycott Harley. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm from Wisconsin. If you boycott Harley, Harley is un-American for being boycotted, and you're un-American, whoever biker you are, for boycotting Harley. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, and the president is going to support the bikers who are ready.
I disagree. No, if they decided to make Harley in China, I wouldn't buy one. Because the proven fact is that the quality goes down when you mass produce out of our country.
Right, but there was the only reason Harley left was because of the tariffs of steel and aluminum that he put on China and a couple of the African countries that produce it that went along with his refugee denial. So we're talking about he's making his own terrible policies worse by going ahead and then, this is, again, two sides against the middle. He's making it worse by pitting the people who made America great against the people who want to tear it down, and he's a part of the people who want to tear it down. If he's going to say that it's okay to let an icon, this is not just an everyday corporation. This is an American icon. When you say Harley, it's like Kleenex. It's like Brillo. It's just a word that means what it is, a motorcycle. And, Brillo is a steel pad. Kleenex is any tissue. Those are branded names. And if he, who is the brand master, is going to let this icon of motorcycles go, then his policy is destructive to America.
Maybe you should invest into the Indian market.
Why?
Because it's just a fine line between Harley and Indian with those riders. If Harley decides to go to China, Indian's going to spike.
Yeah,
true.
I thought you meant Indians,
I mean Indian, the bike manufacturer.
Yeah.
You mean the motorcycle Indian? Yeah, no, I mean that's true. That vacuum again. When we see a vacuum, when people see a vacuum, they move into them. Whether you're Chinese or Muslim or Hispanic, they move into that vacuum, and that's what's happening. That's what conceivably could happen with India. But
I think what you're overlooking, though, Don, what you're overlooking is Trump is a businessman, not a politician. And every day, from the politicians and from the press, you hear, disaster, the world's going to end, Trump has totally destroyed us, and it's like, and then he flips it every time.
But
all these jobs coming over like Foxconn up in not Minnesota, I believe Wisconsin. We've had over 500,000 new jobs come in. We've up $3 trillion in business. You don't think he knows what he's doing? He took $12 million and made $1 billion. He knows how to weed and do it.
Foxconn was on the board before Trump took office. All right.
Actually, he met with Trump and said, "If you're going to be president, I want in, and if not, I'll go overseas." He wasn't going to build his whole thing. He kissed Donald's butt in public, and once he had his word, that's when he signed on. Do you really think that would have happened under Obama? Were these things happening? All the steel plants in Pennsylvania, were these happening under Obama? Really?
Jobs were coming back from the worst fiscal situation since the Depression, and the Obama administration saved the United States of America. I don't like the way he did it.
Barack Obama, now dragging your comments and finish up with the Batman bomb is going to descend on you.
I don't agree with.
This is Barack Obama. Stop dragging your comments and finish up, or the Batman bomb is going to descend on you.
What?
This is Barack Obama. Stop dragging your comments and finish up, or the Batman bomb is going to descend on you.
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
Thanks, Jane.
I think it's a warning.
So you're saying
it was from my press secretary. It was from my press secretary.
You're saying that the stock market. You're saying the stock market hitting the all-time high over 30 or 40% over Obama is because of Obama 2 years later? Like Trump just got really lucky? Is that what you're saying?
The stock market is only a sign of confidence. The stock market means everything is artificial. The doggone LIBOR. They're getting ready to get rid of the LIBor. All right.
And the highest employment. The highest employment among your African American brothers and women is the highest. Well, I don't know what, 30 years, 40 years by accident, because Donald Trump really doesn't know what he's doing. He's kind of lost it. He's kind of an idiot dope. Is that what you're saying?
Who, me? He
took the president of office from Hillary because he doesn't know what he's doing. He's incompetent.
This is not about Trump. This is about corruption since Truman blew up Nagasaki. This is about This is about putting over.
I would love to see. I would love to see the difference between Trump himself by himself and Obama by himself. Try to build a home to live in. I would trust Trump over Obama any day. Obama spent his whole life taking money.
Oh, Trump is a doggone builder. What are you talking about? That's an unfair comparison.
What do you mean it's unfair? He knows how to create something of value. We need more politicians that understand creating value, not taking skimming off the top of somebody else who does.
No, that's how you make money. The 1%ers make money by skimming off the people who don't. Obama doesn't know how to pick up a hammer and nail and put in a nail at all. All right? Obama doesn't know it. He doesn't know it.
Right.
The Fat Man Bomb is going to descend in 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes to finish.
Man Bomb.
Trump knew how to work with
you guys I muted Ben and Don. I'm bringing them back in. You guys got 3 minutes, and that's it. Okay, guys, go ahead. Everybody's back on.
Trump made his money by not paying his workers to nail the nails. That's what I wanted to say. Did you not hear? Okay. Anyway, my conclusion is I love you all, and this doggone world should be full of love. That's all.
Amen.
Balance is my moniker, and that's what I always say. But like I said, I work with the super PAC, so I'm in this every day. I'm in this. I'm in the streets. I'm talking to everybody. I'm organizing, and the thing is that there is a reason for scrutiny, especially the voting machines, our internet, the Russian and Iranian and North Korean hacks, and everything else. There's a reason for the scrutiny, and where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a whole fire that's raging inside the White House that nobody sees. Good night, everybody.
Well,
Good night.